We bet you think you know everything about Peppa Pig and that you're familiar with all the funny theories and mistakes that happen on the show. But have you really heard all of the nonsensical details in the story of the world's most famous pink pig? For example, Daddy Pig doesn't know how to use a hammer and a nail, even though he's a construction engineer. As everyone knows, Daddy Pig is a big pig who works in the construction of important houses and buildings. In fact, he designed the entire project for Mr. Wolf's house and can even be said to have helped with many other buildings around town. But in the episode Daddy Pig Hangs a Picture, we see that a simple task like using a nail to hang a picture on the wall turns into a huge challenge for him. First, he makes a big crack in the bricks, and then he breaks a part of the wall. Sure, nobody needs to know everything, but even someone who doesn't work in construction can use a hammer properly. Do you have an explanation for this? In today's video, we'll see scenes like this one that make no sense in Peppa Pig, so grab your popcorn because another Cinewave is starting. Another thing that doesn't make sense in Peppa Pig is that episode where Susie was going to move away because her mom, Mrs. Sheep, got a new job on the other side of the world. At the end of the episode, Mommy Sheep finds out that she didn't get the job, but that's very strange because when someone receives such an important job offer where they and their family need to move across the world, the decision should already be made. In other words, it doesn't make any sense that Mrs. Sheep even got that phone call in the first place, because it was probably already decided that she was moving with Susie. But what's really weird is that she says that both she and her daughter would stay in the city forever, and she even seems sad about it. Maybe you don't know this, but when someone is so good at their job that an important company seeks you out from across the world, it means you're really good. This means Mrs. Sheep could leave the city whenever she wanted. It's strange that she's upset about not getting the job. In the episode Mr. Bull's New Road, some very nonsensical things happen. In this story, Peppa and her family are on their way to the vet because the family's goldfish needs to have a checkup. Everything's fine until Mr. Bull shows up in the middle of the road and says they're tearing it down to build a new one, which doesn't make any sense because the road already exists. But it gets worse when he tells the vet, Mrs. Hamster, that they will have to demolish the animal hospital immediately to build there. That also doesn't make sense because that's not how major construction works. When you tear down a building to make way for a road, the people who live and work in the buildings to be demolished need to be notified well in advance, not on the day it's happening. But the most nonsensical part of this episode is that Peppa, a 4-year-old pig, is the one who comes up with the solution to the problem. She suggests building a tunnel. But how? Mr. Bull is an adult who works in construction, and it makes no sense for a 4-year-old pig to solve a road-building problem that the responsible adult didn't notice. Not to mention Daddy Pig is an engineer, so he should have solved the problem without needing a child to do it. Have you ever had to solve road construction problems? Comment with #genius so we can get to know ya. Have you ever wondered why the school roof in Peppa's school always has problems? You've definitely seen not one, but several episodes where the school roof needs repairs. But there's something strange about this story. It's not just that the roof broke so many times, but the fact that it's only fixed when there's a fun event at school. Daddy Pig has jumped, have fallen, from a plane to fix the school roof. The kids have had to run a fun fair to raise money from their parents, and once again, Daddy Pig had to run a marathon. All of this was done to raise money for the school roof repair. But wait a second, the people giving the money for the repair are the kids' parents, the same people who are spending money to do events like renting a plane for Daddy Pig to jump from or buying stalls for the school fair. If the moms and dads have money to fix their kids' school, why do they need to spend more money renting planes and stalls to raise money that's already theirs? Do you see what we're talking about? The parents are paying for the repairs, so there's no need for them to do an event to give their own money. Speaking of school, there's a visitor who shouldn't be showing up there. Have you ever wondered why Mr. Bull goes to the town school so many times if he has no kids? One example is when Madame Gazelle teaches her students to play various instruments from different parts of the world, but just when the parents come to pick up their kids, Mr. Bull is there. But how come? The narrator even says the parents come to pick up their children, but Mr. Bull doesn't have kids. There isn't a single little one under his care. It's true that he's married to Mrs. Waffle now, and we've seen a little cow who hangs out with her, but this character doesn't even appear at the town school, and besides, she wasn't there in this episode. This is just one example of how he keeps showing up at the school without needing to. It really just doesn't make sense. You know that the very existence of a talking potato in the show doesn't make sense, but that's not what we're here to talk about. In the episode where Mr. Potato goes to Peppa's town to open a new sports center, something really out of the ordinary happens. The giant talking vegetable tells the children to eat vegetables and fruits. But does that make any sense? Yes, eating these things is important for your health, but why would a potato say that? Theoretically, We're talking about creatures from the same species as Mr. Potato, maybe a cousin of his, or perhaps an ant who ends up being eaten. We bet a vegetable telling people to eat other vegetables can only be a crime. You know what else is illegal? Not subscribing to the channel or turning on the notification bell. Fix that right now before you get a visit from the police. Elephants are very intelligent animals. Their brains have an incredible memory, but Edmund is just a 2-year-old calf, right? If you've been watching Peppa since the beginning, you know that Emily's brother is truly a genius way ahead of his time. He should be in college instead of kindergarten, but this is strange. Not that little elephants can't be super smart, but regardless of that, a 2-year-old child doesn't have enough life experience to study that much. What fans haven't realized is that all of the knowledge in Edmund's head must have come from studying, but the amount of things he knows is so vast that it would take much more than 2 years to learn. Doubt it? Grandpa Rabbit is already elderly, and Edmund knows things that took him years to learn. The little elephant doesn't have enough life to know what he knows, and that's why the theory that he's an adult in disguise is so popular with the show's fans. Unlike Edmund, something that doesn't make sense is that George can't communicate properly with people. Everyone knows very well that he's a little pig, but it's definitely about time he could say more than just dinosaur. Yes, we've heard him say other things like mommy, but that's it. He can't form full sentences even though he understands everything the others say. Do you see how that doesn't make sense? If George knows what others are saying and he himself can speak, why can't he speak properly? In the world of Peppa, animals talk, including potatoes and other vegetables. Also, Mrs. Rabbit seems to be everywhere at once, but there's another thing that really doesn't make sense. The characters go to space. In fact, this has happened several times. Grandpa Rabbit has already taken Grandma Pig and Madame Gazelle to the moon, and do you know what's even stranger? George and Peppa went there too, and when the rocket was taking off, they were both without astronaut suits. And yes, the rocket was already out of the planet, where there's no air to breathe. How did Peppa and George manage to breathe outside of Earth? This definitely makes no sense at all. Episode 13 of Season 5 of Peppa Pig has one of the funniest stories in the series. In this one, Peppa goes with her mom and brother to the vet for a checkup for the family's goldfish. Just like what happens in the episode about the road we talked about earlier, but this time things get even weirder. First, when they're at the vet's office, the phone rings, and it's Dr. Elephant calling her for an emergency with a lizard. Then, Dr. Hamster goes to the scene in the veterinary clinic's plane, but this doesn't make sense because animal hospitals don't usually have planes. What's even stranger is that Dr. Hamster abandons the goldfish's checkup and takes Peppa and her family along for the rescue. Second, when they arrive in the mountains, the only problem was that the lizard was upside down, and all they needed to do was help it turn the right way up. Third, after that, there are 2 more calls, one from Grandpa Pig to rescue Polly the parrot, who's seasick, and another from Daddy Pig, who asks for help with ducklings stuck on the company's roof. But everything gets weird because Dr. Hamster is a vet, not a firefighter. She shouldn't be rescuing animals stuck on roofs. This is really strange. There have definitely been many other moments like these in Peppa Pig, but you know what makes perfect sense? Having you here with us. We've picked out 2 more videos for you to enjoy. See you in the next video.